Welcome back to your free Active Directory training course. In this video, I will look at some of the new features of Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, and Service Pack 1 for Windows Server 2008 R2. In this training series and other free training series from us, you will notice that we commonly refer to Windows Server 2008 even when the course is designed around Windows Server 2008 R2. The reason for this is that if the feature exists in both operating systems, we simply state Windows Server 2008. If the feature only exists in R2 or with Service Pack 1, we will mention this. All the demonstrations for this course are done in Windows Server 2008 R2. If you are working with Windows Server 2008, the interface is very similar, if not the same, so you should be able to follow along. The first major feature of Windows Server 2008 over its predecessor is that Windows Server 2008 is very modular. This is done through the use of roles and features. Both are added through the Server Manager. Although at times there is an overlap between roles and features, think of a role as a major feature or change added to the operating system. A feature, on the other hand, is like a smaller add-on package added to the operating system. Some of these roles and features in Windows Server 2008 were available in Windows Server 2003 as downloads from Microsoft. In Windows Server 2008, these have been integrated into Windows Server 2008 and you no longer need to download them. The modular nature of Windows Server 2008 makes it very easy to customize your server and change it when your needs change. Let's start by looking at some of the new features in Windows Server 2008, followed by R2, and finishing with the features that are in Service Pack 1. First, I will look at the Active Directory server features added with Windows Server 2008. Windows Server 2008 comes with Active Directory Certificate Services, formerly Certificate Services in Windows Server 2003. Certificates give you excellent security. With Windows Server 2008, certificates are more tightly bound with Active Directory, making it a lot easier to deploy certificates in your organization. Next, Windows Server 2008 comes with Active Directory Application Mode, or ADAM. This was previously an add-on in Windows Server 2003. With Windows Server 2008, it is included. ADAM is a non-operating system service, unlike Active Directory. ADAM provides an application framework for applications to access the data in the Active Directory database. The next feature of Windows Server 2008 is Active Directory Federation Services. Federation services allow users in different organizations to easily share resources with each other. This is designed for circumstances where the users are not part of your company and may be a partner or supplier. Federation Services provides the infrastructure for the two organizations to have access to each other's resources. All this is done without the need for both organizations to share Active Directory infrastructure. When done correctly, the supplier or third-party organization should be able to access resources on both networks with a single sign-on. The next feature of Windows Server 2008 is that it comes with Active Directory Rights Management. Rights management is software designed to protect your intellectual property. For example, you could protect an Office document from being copied or even printed. Next, Windows Server 2008 supports read-only domain controllers. A domain controller is responsible for authenticating users and allowing them access to the network. A read-only domain controller is used in places where physical security of the domain controller may be a concern. A read-only domain controller cannot make changes and, if stolen, can easily be removed from the network without any loss of security. The next feature of Windows Server 2008 is Active Directory is now restartable. If you have a problem with Active Directory, you can stop and restart it like any other service. Previously, you could only do this by rebooting the server. Active Directory now supports granular password policies. Previously, if you wanted to have a different password policy, for example, you want to enforce longer passwords for certain users, the only way this could be done was to have separate domains. Now, with Active Directory granular passwords, you can create a completely different set of password policies for different users. With granular password policies, you no longer have to create separate domains in order to have separate password policies. Active Directory now also supports snapshots for the database itself. A snapshot allows you to take a record of what the database looks like at a particular point in time. Once the snapshot is taken, you can restore the database back to what it looked like when the snapshot was taken. Snapshots make recovery of the Active Directory database a lot easier. That's it for Active Directory features in Windows Server 2008. Let's look at some of the non-Active Directory related features that Windows Server 2008 has. Windows Server 2008 now has self-healing NTFS file system. If Windows detects a problem with a file on the hard disk, an NTFS worker thread is started to correct the problem. In the old days, you sometimes had to reboot your server and run a low-level check disk when the server started up. Hopefully, with a self-healing NTFS, rebooting the server to perform a disk check is a thing of the past. If you are using terminal services, you may have suffered delays for creating new sessions on busy servers. This is because terminal services could only create one session at a time. If a session was in the process of being created, the next session had to wait until that session was created. Windows Server 2008 can now start 4 sessions at once, in parallel, reducing the wait time users have to wait to access busy servers. Windows Server 2008 now supports clean server shutdown. Previously, what would happen is that all the processes on the system would be given a signal that the server is shutting down. All processes on the system would then have 20 seconds to shut down. For an application that has a lot of data to write to the hard disk, or a printer with a big print job currently printing, 20 seconds is not enough time. With Windows Server 2008, the processes on the server are now given as much time as they need to stop cleanly, as long as they are still responsive. If Windows Server 2008 thinks the process has crashed or hung, it will reboot the server regardless. This ensures your services get time to shut down correctly, and a stuck process does not cause the system not to reboot. The next feature is Server Core. Server Core is a version of Windows Server 2008 without the graphical interface. Not having the graphical interface means that the server has less software and drivers. This reduces the amount of memory required to run the server and also reduces the attack surface. The attack surface is defined as the number of ports, services, and software that an attacker could use to compromise a system. More software running is more software that needs to be patched and has the potential to have a security issue that a hacker may be able to exploit. Windows Server 2008 comes with a new role called Hyper-V. Originally, Hyper-V was not included with Windows Server 2008 when it was first released, as it was not finished in time. It was later made available as a download and through Windows Update. Hyper-V provides a native virtualization solution to run your virtual machines. The next feature with Windows Server 2008 is PowerShell. This is available as a download for Windows Server 2003, but is included in Windows Server 2008. PowerShell is a command line interface designed to replace the old MS-DOS style command line prompt. PowerShell is a lot more powerful than the command line and has better support for interfaces such as .NET. There are more new features in Windows Server 2008, but this covers the major ones. The next features that I want to look at are the new features that are in Windows Server 2008 R2. The first feature is Branch Cache. Branch Cache allows files to be cached on a local network rather than copying them over the wide area network again. Branch cache only works with Windows 7 clients. The next feature is Direct Access. Once again, this feature only works when combined with Windows 7 clients. Direct Access allows users to connect to the corporate network without having to create a VPN connection. A Direct Access connection back to the office will be made automatically when the computer is connected to an Internet connection. Windows Server 2008 R2 adds support for the Active Directory Recycle Bin. The Active Directory Recycle Bin allows you to recover Active Directory objects after they have been deleted. For example, if you deleted a user account, you could recover the user account and any security attached to that account. Previously, in order to recover deleted objects, you would have needed to reboot the server from safe mode and restore the Active Directory objects. The next feature you have is Starter Group Policies. Group Policy allows you to deploy settings to computers in your enterprise. Starter Group Policy allows you to create a template group policy. If you are deploying a lot of similar group policies, a starter group policy will save you a lot of time. There are quite a lot of changes in Windows Server 2008 R2, but this covers the major ones. Next, there are the features that Service Pack 1 adds to Windows Server 2008 R2. Service Pack 1 contains many improvements and fixes based on customer feedback. There are over 600 updates and fixes. A lot of these are available through Windows Updates, but installing one service pack is generally a lot easier. As well as these updates, there are two major features added with Service Pack 1. First, there is Dynamic Memory, a new feature for Hyper-V. Dynamic Memory allows you to set a minimum and maximum memory range for your virtual machines. Hyper-V will then change this value based on the demand on the system. For example, if one computer needs more RAM, then more RAM will be allocated to that virtual machine and less to the other. The essential idea behind dynamic memory is that all of the virtual machines on the system will not need the entire RAM in the computer at once. In some cases, one virtual machine may be put under a lot of load and needs additional RAM, but any other time it needs very little. When this occurs, RAM from a pool is allocated to this virtual machine. When done correctly, this allows more virtual machines on the one server without sacrificing the performance of the other virtual machines. Before I start talking about the next feature, one thing I want to point out is that in Windows Server 2008 R2, Terminal Services changes its name to Remote Desktop. Essentially, Terminal Services and Remote Desktop are the same thing, just consider Remote Desktop as a newer version of Terminal Services. The next new feature is Remote FX. Remote FX allows graphical intense effects like Aereo, Windows Graphics Interface, to use 3D hardware on the server rather than on the client. This means that if you connect to a terminal server using old hardware, the terminal server would perform all of the 3D rendering on the server and send the result to the client. This means that your old hardware that is being used for remote clients that don't support 3D can start displaying 3D. This does mean that the 3D load is being moved from the client to the server. However, if your server can handle the load, it means that you won't have to upgrade the hardware on your clients. That's it for all the new features in Windows Server 2008, R2, and Service Pack 1. Not a complete list, but covers all the major changes. In the next video, I will look more at some of the protocols that make Active Directory work. For more free videos, please check out our website or YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.